Hello and welcome. For China Solved, I'm Andrew Hubert, and this is the China Negotiator. So you're in a trade war. Episode 29, Worst Case Scenarios. Okay, people, it's time for a little honest talk about risk analysis. If you have trade agreements, then you don't notice each other if they're working. If you have trade tension, it means you're arguing about trade, but you're trading. Trade war. All right, now trade is becoming expensive and competitive. In a Cold War, there is no trade. Why am I bringing this up? Because U.S.-China trade relations are edging towards Cold War. Don't let the flashy graphics confuse or dazzle you. We have some decisions to make. 3 takeaways about Cold Wars. Number 1, U.S.-China relations may enter a Cold War phase. Number 2, new risks of competitive alliances and trade groups are going to start to occupy a lot of your thinking and a lot of your decision making. So get right with this early. And number 3, a world full of enemies. You're going to be someone's enemy at the end of this. Yeah. All right, let's talk about each one in a little bit more detail. Is this a new Cold War? We will find out soon, but I want to discuss what it means to have a Cold War. And I'm afraid that the phrase strategic competitor may have become the new euphemism for Cold War enemy. And yeah, we're going to start talking in terms of enemies, so get used to it. The last Cold War shut down trade between US and the USSR, and you should make plans for something similar or analogous to happen with US and China. And this brings up the next issue, which is competitive alliances. Cold Wars are bad for trade, but they're great for alliances. Each side, in this case, the US and China, have their unique approach to alliance building, and that's going to affect your global dealings. And you can notice there are a lot of new opportunities and new risks. Who's going to be where in the next set of alliances? Let's talk about the definites. US can definitely count on USA, Japan, and Taiwan. PRC, China, can definitely plan on PRC. Hong Kong, Cambodia, and Myanmar. African clients, and anyone who has accepted loans or switched diplomatic recognition from Taiwan to PRC, they're pretty much on board. They're pretty much committed. Here are the maybes, the people that are in play. Europe, UK, Australia, Canada, and Mexico. These are our traditional allies, but it's anyone's guess in the new world where they land on this. Korea and Singapore, they're very U.S. leaning, but they kind of got burned on the TPP. So I don't know. Singapore may have to face some realpolitik facts soon. And on the China side, there is Russia. If Russia chooses a side, I imagine it's going to be China. North Korea just always gets a question mark because they're North Korea. Who knows? They may go with Donald Trump. Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia are the big deal here because they could go China. Vietnam doesn't like China, but their economies are already strongly integrated. Thailand, kind of the same thing. Malaysia and Indonesia, no love for the U.S. there. They don't love China, but you could see them playing both sides against one another and sort of landing in the China orbit. One Belt, One Road may be a victim of the trade war, but that just means that China is going to put more attention on ASEAN. You may be saying that they're going to lose that Malaysia leg, and it's true. They may not get the rail done in Malaysia or Singapore anytime soon, but China has already got links on the ground or negotiations done with Thailand, with Myanmar, with Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. I think that ASEAN is likely to go into China's orbit. Now let's talk about the real fallout, and that is a world full of enemies. At home in the U.S., U.S. and China have a terrible history as far as racism goes, and it's the U.S. The U.S. has a terrible history of racism towards China, and we will see a return to that, or an intensification of that, depending on where you stand. You'll see new regulations, including new tariffs and maybe even sanctions. It's going to start to affect the reputation of brands that are closely linked to China. And you may see more product liability lawsuits. The companies may win or lose, but it's going to be, again, terrible for their reputation and their bottom line. On the Chinese side, it's not going to be any better. In China, you are going to, the propaganda wheels are turning, and you are the enemy who is destroying not just the Chinese economy, but their homes and loved ones. Anti-Western sentiment in China is always beneath the surface, and it gets big fast, and you've got to start to factor that in to your planning. Final word, if you're saying that I am being too pessimistic and that it's too early, you may be right. But there are more indicators that seem to be pointing towards greater conflict than towards any kind of meaningful resolution. Thanks for watching. For China Solved, I'm Andrew Hubert. I'll speak to you again about this soon.